We'll continue this lesson now with the midpoint formula. So the midpoint formula is this. M equals, and it's a point, so we're going to put it in parentheses with a comma in the middle. A midpoint between 2 points is the average of the x values, so x1 plus x2 divided by 2. And then it's the average of the y values, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So to find a midpoint, the average of the x's, here we're looking for the midpoint M of this segment RS. So the midpoint is the average of the x's, 1 plus 4 divided by 2, and the average of the y's, negative 3 plus 2 divided by 2. Okay, so that's 1 plus 4, 5. 5 over 2. So 5 halves is the x value. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1 over 2. There's the y value. There is the midpoint. For segment XY, the midpoint is the average of the x's, 12 plus negative 4 over 2, and the average of the y's, negative 5 plus negative 7 over 2. So that's 8 over 2 and negative 12 over 2. Now this can be simplified. 8 over 2 is 4. Negative 12 over 2 is negative 6. And there is the midpoint. Now we can also find an endpoint if we are given one endpoint and the midpoint. So here we have segment JK where J is 1, 4. The other endpoint K is some X and some Y. And the midpoint is 2, 1. So if I was to write out the midpoint formula, M equals the average of the x's of the endpoints, that's 1 plus an x that I don't know, over 2. And then the average of the y's, 4 plus a y that I do not know, over 2. Now in that case, here I know that this is going to equal the midpoint of 2, 1. So this right here gives me a value of 2. So I can write out an equation, 1 plus x over 2 equals 2. I also know that this gives me a y value of 1. 4 plus y over 2 equals 1. So I can multiply both sides by 2 to cancel that out. 1 plus x equals 4. And subtract 1. So x is 3. So for my other endpoint k, I know the x value is 3. And then here I'll multiply both sides by 2. 4 plus y equals 2. And subtract 4. Y equals negative 2. So the y value of endpoint k is negative 2. Okay, one more like that. This time I'm going to skip this part where I set it up and just go straight to my two equations. So V is an endpoint with an x and a y value. The other endpoint is 4, 4. So to find the x value of the midpoint, I would do 4 plus some x value over 2. And that equals the x value of the midpoint, which is negative 1. So I'll multiply both sides by 2. 4 plus x equals negative 2. And subtract 4, x equals negative 6. So the endpoint V has an x value of negative 6. Then the average of the y's, 4 plus some y value over 2, equals the midpoint's y value, which is negative 2. Multiply both sides by 2. 4 plus y equals negative 4. And subtract 4, y equals negative 8. So the y value of that midpoint is negative 8. Okay, now I want to finish up today's lesson with a little review of simplifying radicals. This will set us up for what we need to do tomorrow. So to simplify a radical, let's do a factor tree. 40 is 4 times 10. Okay, 4 is 2 times 2, and 10 is 2 times 5. There is a pair of 2's. Anytime there's a pair, when I rewrite the radical, I'm going to take that outside, and anything left over stays inside. That's 2 times 5 stays inside. So that equals 2 times the square root of 10. 225, this is actually a square number, and I say that because its square root is a whole number. 225 is 15 times 15. Now I could break this down into 3 times 5 and 3 times 5, but that would give me the same thing as if I quit here. When I have a pair, I can quit. 15 comes out, and there's nothing left over to stay in. Okay, 576. That's an even number, so it's going to be divisible by 2. So 576 divided by 2 is 288. So 2 and 288. 288 is divisible by 2. 2 and 144. There's a pair of 2's. 144 is 12 times 12, and I don't need to break those down any further because they're a pair. So it looks like everything's going to come outside again. 2 times 12. So the square root of 576 is 24. Okay, and then the square root of 45. 45 is 9 times 5. 9 is 3 times 3. There's a pair. That can come outside. There's a 5 left over. That will stay inside. Square root of 45 is equal to 3 times the square root of 5.